The cafe was small, cozy, and always filled with the smell of fresh coffee and baked goods. It sat on the corner of a quiet street, the kind of place where people came not just for food, but for the feeling of being somewhere familiar. The waitress moved between tables with ease, carrying trays of coffee, plates of sandwiches, and desserts. Always smiling politely, always ready to serve. She knew most of the regulars by name and greeted them with a warmth that made the cafe feel like home. But behind her smile, there was a kind of quiet loneliness. She worked long hours, often from early morning until late evening. Sometimes the days blurred together, each one as ordinary as the last. She had been working at the cafe for a few years now. At first, it was just a job to pay the bills, to keep her small apartment and help her family when she could. But over time, it became part of her life, something that gave her a routine and stability, even if it wasn't glamorous. Most of the customers didn't think much about her beyond the friendly service she provided. She was invisible in a way, a background figure in their mornings, afternoons, and evenings. But there was another side to her, a side that nobody at the cafe really saw. When she was alone in her apartment, she would pull out an old, slightly worn notebook and sing softly to herself. She had always loved music, ever since she was a child. She remembered standing in her small room at home, singing along to songs on the radio, pretending the walls were a stage and the applause was real. Music was a part of her soul, something that made her feel alive in a way that her daily routines could not. She practiced quietly, her voice growing stronger and more confident with each day. But it was always private, a secret world that belonged only to her. Some of her coworkers had noticed that she liked music. They sometimes heard her humming or softly singing while she worked. They thought it was cute, a little quirk, but they didn't take it seriously. To them, she was just the hardworking waitress, always polite, always efficient, always dependable. They didn't know about the long hours she spent at home practicing songs, imagining what it would be like to perform in front of people who truly listened. Her day at the cafe started like any other. The morning rush was hectic. People came in for their coffee and breakfast, some in a hurry, some lingering to chat. She moved quickly, taking orders, refilling drinks, clearing tables, making sure everyone had what they needed. Her movements were precise, almost automatic, like she had done this 1,000 times before. But even in the chaos, she kept a calm, friendly demeanor. She had learned to smile through the stress, to keep her thoughts to herself, to stay focused on the task at hand. During the quieter moments, she would glance out the window and watch people walking by. Sometimes she imagined what it would be like to leave the cafe behind and do something completely different, something that would let her shine. She thought about singing on a real stage with lights, an audience, and music that could fill a room. But those thoughts were fleeting, pushed aside by the reality of Bill's responsibilities and the life she had built for herself. Despite the routine, there were small moments that reminded her why she loved being at the cafe. A customer would compliment her smile. A child would giggle when she brought them a plate of pancakes, or a regular would ask how her day was going. Those little moments of connection, however brief, made the long hours worth it. She cherished them quietly without expecting anything more. One particular morning, as she wiped down a table, she noticed a man sitting alone in the corner. He was older, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He always came in at the same time, ordered the same coffee, and read his newspaper in silence. But today he looked up and nodded at her. "Good morning," he said warmly. She smiled back, feeling a small spark of recognition and connection. It was moments like these that made her feel seen, even in a world that often ignored her. By midday, the cafe had settled into a rhythm. The lunch crowd came and went, and she moved through the tables with practiced ease. A group of coworkers from a nearby office came in, laughing and talking loudly, but she managed to serve them with the same polite attention as always. Inside, she felt a familiar mix of longing and contentment. She loved the work, but she also dreamed of something more, something that would allow her to step out of the background and into the light. When the afternoon lull arrived, she finally had a few moments to breathe. She carried a tray of empty plates to the kitchen, set them down, and leaned against the counter. Her mind wandered, as it often did, to the songs she had been practicing at home. She imagined herself on a stage, the light shining down, the audience listening intently, the music flowing through her in a way that made her feel powerful and alive. The thought made her heart beat faster, and for a brief moment, she allowed herself to believe that it could really happen. As the day wore on, she continued her work, serving customers, taking orders, and keeping the cafe running smoothly. She was tired, her feet ached, and her back was sore, but she pushed through. She had learned to keep her exhaustion hidden behind a smile, to make the work look effortless. Even when it wasn't. It was a skill she had perfected over the years, and it earned her respect from her coworkers and the appreciation of regular customers. The sun began to set, casting a warm glow through the cafe windows. The evening crowd arrived, bringing with them a mix of laughter, conversation, and the occasional impatient sigh. She moved between tables, refilling drinks, taking orders, and making sure everyone felt welcome. There was a quiet satisfaction in the rhythm of it all, a sense of purpose in the simple act of serving others. As she finished her shift, she cleaned the last table, stacked chairs, and wiped down the counters. The cafe was quiet now, the bustle of the day replaced by a calm stillness. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the day on her shoulders, but also a small sense of pride. She had done her work well, and in the process, she had created a little space of comfort and warmth for everyone who had walked through the door. Later, walking home, she thought about the day, about the small connections she had made, and about the music that waited for her at home. She imagined the notes she would sing, the songs she would practice, and the dreams that still felt just out of reach. But she also felt a quiet determination, a sense that someday, somehow, she would find a way to share her voice with the world. The city lights twinkled as she walked, each one a tiny spark of possibility. She knew that life was ordinary, that the days often blurred together. But she also knew that within her, there was a fire that refused to be ignored. And as she stepped into her small apartment, closed the door behind her, and picked up her notebook, she let herself dream. She sang softly, letting the music fill the room, letting her voice carry her hopes and fears, her joy and her longing. For in that quiet, private space, she was not just a waitress, not just a worker moving through the routine of the day. She was a singer, a dreamer, a soul alive with the promise of something more. The next day at the cafe started like any other, with the smell of fresh bread and coffee filling the air. The waitress moved through the morning rush with practiced ease, her smile polite, but her mind elsewhere. She thought about her songs, her voice, the dreams she kept tucked away. Nothing seemed unusual, and yet she had a feeling that today might be different, though she didn't know why. Around mid-morning, the cafe manager walked in, a look of worry on her face. The waitress noticed immediately. The manager rarely showed concern unless something serious was happening. She approached the counter where the waitress was clearing empty plates and said in a low, hurried voice, "The performer for tonight's music night canceled. We have no one to fill in. Can you help?" The waitress blinked, surprised. "Me? But I've never performed here in front of a crowd." "I don't even know if I could," she said quietly, unsure how to respond. The manager nodded, clearly stressed. "I know, but it's last minute. I don't know what else to do. Can you at least try? Just one song, maybe?" Her heart started racing. The thought of singing in front of people, many of them strangers, made her feel both excited and terrified. She glanced around the cafe, thinking of the regulars, the coworkers, and the casual visitors who would be there. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing on her. For a moment she thought about declining, going back to her work, keeping her voice to herself. But then a small spark of courage lit inside her. Maybe this was the moment she had been waiting for, the chance to step out of the shadows. "I'll try," she said finally, her voice quiet but firm. The manager's face lit up with relief. "Thank you. I promise the customers will be understanding and will make it work. You can do this." The day went on, but she couldn't focus on her usual tasks. Every order she took, every tray she carried, felt heavier because her mind kept turning over the thought of performing. She tried to practice quietly in the empty kitchen, humming softly, testing her range, and imagining herself on the small stage they had set up in the corner of the cafe. She could see the dim lights, the small crowd, the attention of people who might really listen. She tried to picture herself confident, in control, and the image made her feel a mix of fear and hope. By evening, the cafe was filled with more people than usual. Word had spread that there would be live music, and curiosity had drawn in a small crowd. The regulars were chatting quietly, unaware that the scheduled performer had canceled. Some were sipping their drinks, scrolling on phones, reading newspapers, or simply watching the world outside the window. The atmosphere was casual, friendly, but it carried the quiet tension of expectation. Backstage, or rather, the small corner that served as the makeshift stage, the waitress prepared herself. She adjusted her apron one last time, smoothed her hair, and took a deep breath. She could hear the chatter of the customers, the clinking of cups and plates, the soft hum of background conversation. Her stomach twisted in knots, but she told herself she could do this. She had practiced, she knew her songs, and she had carried her passion in secret for years. This was her moment to step forward. Her co-workers gathered near the stage, offering encouraging smiles and nods. Some of them whispered that she could do it, that they believed in her, and that even if it didn't go perfectly, she would still impress people just by trying. Their support was small, but it meant everything. She felt a tiny surge of confidence, enough to take the first step. The manager gave her a nod, signaling that it was time. The waitress walked onto the stage, her heart hammering in her chest. She could see the faces of the customers, some curious, some skeptical, some barely paying attention. A few raised their eyebrows in surprise, not expecting the shy waitress to suddenly appear on stage. She felt her hands tremble, her throat dry, and a wave of doubt wash over her. But she pushed it aside, focusing on the music, on the voice she had nurtured for so long, on the dreams she refused to abandon. She began to sing softly, almost hesitantly, testing the waters. Her voice was clear, warm, and surprisingly powerful. It carried through the cafe, cutting through the background noise, drawing attention. The customers started to pause, looking up from their drinks and conversations. Some whispered to each other, astonished by the unexpected talent of someone they had only seen serving food. The music wrapped around them, slow and gentle at first. Then, building in strength and emotion, the waitress closed her eyes for a moment, letting the song take over. Each note, each word flowed naturally, carrying the feelings she had kept inside for so long. She thought about the long hours of practice, the secret moments at home, the dreams she had almost forgotten. All of it came together in this moment, and she felt a sense of liberation she had never known. She was no longer invisible, no longer just the quiet waitress moving through the routine of the day. She was a performer, a singer, a person with a story to tell. As the song continued, the cafe grew quiet. The background chatter faded, replaced by the attentive silence of people captivated by her voice. Some customers leaned forward in their chairs. Others closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them. Even the regulars, who had seen her every day without giving her a second thought, were transfixed. Her co-workers watched with wide eyes, amazed at the transformation happening in front of them. The waitress felt a rush of emotion, a mix of fear, excitement, and joy. She had taken a risk, and it was paying off in ways she had never imagined by the time the song reached its final notes. The cafe was completely still for a heartbeat, as if the world itself had paused to listen. Then, slowly, the room erupted in applause. Customers cheered, clapped, and even whistled, some rising to their feet in admiration. The waitress opened her eyes, seeing the astonished faces around her, the smiles, the clapping, the awe. Her heart swelled with pride and disbelief. She had done it. She had stepped up, faced her fear, and stunned the whole room with her performance. The manager rushed over, hugging her tightly and congratulating her. "You were amazing. Everyone is talking about you. I can't believe you just did that." The co-workers cheered as well, patting her on the back and offering words of praise. Even some of the skeptical customers approached, smiling, shaking her hand, and telling her how incredible she was. For the first time, she felt truly seen, truly appreciated, and truly alive. After the performance, she returned to her station, still buzzing with adrenaline. Customers continued to compliment her, ask questions, and share their excitement. She realized that her life had changed in a single evening. The shy, quiet waitress, who had been invisible to the world, had revealed her hidden talent and captured the attention of everyone around her. It was a small step, but it was a step towards something greater, something she had always dreamed of, but had never dared to pursue. As the night ended and the cafe emptied, she cleaned up her station with a smile on her face, thinking about the possibilities ahead. She knew there would be challenges, doubts, and obstacles. But she also knew that she had the courage and the talent to face them. The experience had shown her that she could step up when the moment demanded it, that she could turn fear into action, and that her voice had the power to move people. Walking home that night, she felt a lightness in her step, a joy in her heart. The city lights sparkled around her, but none shone brighter than the feeling inside her. She thought about the songs she would practice, the performances she might have in the future, and the dreams she could finally pursue with confidence. For the first time in a long while, she felt that her life was no longer ordinary, that the quiet days and unnoticed moments had led her to something extraordinary. When she reached her small apartment, she sat down at the desk by the window, picked up her notebook, and began to write. She wrote about the day, about the courage it took to step up, and about the joy of sharing her voice. She wrote about the applause, the astonished faces, and the feeling of being truly alive. Music had always been her secret world, but now it was a world she could share with others. And she knew, deep in her heart, that this was only the beginning. The cafe was alive with soft chatter, the clinking of cups, and the gentle hum of background music. The small crowd was settling in for what they thought would be another ordinary evening. Few of them knew the original performer had canceled, and even fewer could have imagined what was about to happen. The waitress stood backstage, hands shaking slightly, heart pounding with anticipation and fear. She had decided to step up to share her voice, and now there was no turning back. Every thought of doubt tried to creep in, but she pushed it aside. Focusing on the notes she had practiced, the melodies that had carried her through long, lonely nights, as she took her first step onto the makeshift stage, she noticed the surprised faces of a few regulars. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to skepticism. Some raised eyebrows, others whispered to their companions. She could hear the quiet murmur of expectation ripple through the cafe. It was all so overwhelming, yet exhilarating. The small spotlight above the stage felt warm, almost comforting, as if it were encouraging her to sing. To let go of her fears and trust in herself, she closed her eyes and began softly, letting the first notes flow gently into the room. The sound was clear and pure, carrying more weight and emotion than she had even realized was possible. At first, a few customers continued their conversations, unaware of the magic starting to unfold. But as the song continued, the tone of her voice reached out, drawing them in. Conversations slowed, heads turned, eyes focused on the young woman who had appeared from behind the counter. Now commanding the room with nothing but her voice, with each verse she gained confidence. Her hands relaxed, her posture straightened, and her breathing became steady. She could feel the music coursing through her as if the very notes were lifting her, guiding her, giving her strength she hadn't known she possessed. Every chord she had practiced, every song she had sung in secret at home, led to this moment. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a storyteller, a musician, a presence that captivated every person in the room. The room slowly fell silent. The clinking of cups and soft hums replaced entirely by the sound of her voice. People leaned forward in their seats, their faces softened by awe and appreciation. Some closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them, feeling the emotions carried in every note. Others exchanged glances, surprised that someone they had seen only as a server could possess such raw, undeniable talent. The energy in the room shifted, and it was electric. Her voice had taken command of the space, transforming an ordinary cafe into a theater, where emotion and music reigned supreme. She moved through the song effortlessly, each note and word delivered with clarity and passion. Memories of late nights practicing alone, of singing quietly while the world slept, fueled her performance. She remembered the long days of work, the moments when she felt unseen, and she poured all of that into her voice. Her voice was no longer just sound. It was a story, a release of years of hidden dreams, fears, and hopes. The customers were no longer thinking about their meals or phones. They were listening. They were feeling. And they were amazed. A few of the regulars had been skeptical from the start, not expecting much from a waitress stepping up on a whim. But now, their eyes widened in surprise and admiration. Their polite applause at the start had grown into enthusiastic clapping, some even whispering to each other about how incredible her voice was. The cafe, once just a background for a simple evening, had become a stage where her talent could finally shine. The waitress felt a surge of emotion as she sang, her confidence growing with each passing moment. She no longer noticed the nervous butterflies in her stomach. She didn't feel fear anymore. She felt alive, truly alive. Every note seemed to lift her higher. Every word connected her to the audience in ways she had only dreamed of. She could see the smiles forming, the faces captivated, the hands clapping along with her rhythm. The energy was mutual, a dance between her voice and the room that neither could control, but both embraced. Her coworkers watched from the side, unable to hide their amazement. Some whispered excitedly to each other, pointing at the waitress and shaking their heads in disbelief. They had known she had a love for music, but they had never seen her like this. She was radiant, confident, and completely in command of the room. They felt a sense of pride, as if they had discovered a hidden treasure right in their workplace. As the song approached its climax, her voice soared, hitting notes that resonated deeply with everyone present. The room was silent again, this time not out of surprise, but out of reverent attention. Every ear, every eye, every heart seemed to be focused entirely on her. She could feel the collective emotion, the unspoken connection between herself and the audience. She sang not just to be heard, but to be felt, to touch the lives of people who had come expecting an ordinary night and were now experiencing something extraordinary. For a moment, time seemed to stop. She lost herself in the music, letting her body sway gently with the rhythm, letting her voice carry every ounce of her passion. She remembered all the times she had doubted herself, all the nights she had felt invisible, all the moments she had wished for an opportunity like this. And now she had it. The sound of her own voice filled the cafe, echoing in the hearts of everyone listening, leaving an imprint that would not be forgotten. When the final note hung in the air, the silence lingered for a heartbeat, almost as if the room itself was holding its breath. Then, slowly, the applause began. First a few polite claps, then louder, more enthusiastic clapping, until the entire cafe was cheering and whistling. The customers were on their feet, clapping, smiling, and some even shouting words of admiration. The waitress opened her eyes, overwhelmed by the response. Her heart swelled with emotion, tears threatening to spill, but she held them back. Smiling through the joy and disbelief, the manager rushed over, embracing her and congratulating her over the din of the crowd. "You were incredible. I can't believe what just happened," she said, beaming with pride. Her coworkers cheered and clapped, some patting her on the back, others beaming at the awestruck patrons. Even the regulars who had been skeptical were now offering compliments, shaking their heads in amazement. And asking if she performed often, the waitress took a moment to breathe, to let the energy of the room sink in, and she realized something remarkable. She had done it. She had stepped up when the moment demanded it, faced her fear, and shared her talent with people who were ready to be moved. The experience was exhilarating, terrifying, and completely transformative. She had never felt so alive, so connected to a group of people, so confident in her own abilities. As the evening continued, the cafe patrons lingered, talking about the performance, replaying the notes in their minds, and sharing their excitement with each other. Some even took out their phones, recording bits of the song, eager to capture a piece of the magic that had unfolded before them. The atmosphere was filled with energy, laughter, and awe. The waitress returned to her station after the applause had died down, still buzzing with adrenaline, but now carrying a deep sense of pride and accomplishment. walking home later that night. She replayed the evening in her mind. She remembered the fear, the first hesitant notes, the growing confidence, and the final overwhelming applause. She felt a sense of gratitude for taking the risk, for stepping out of her comfort zone, and for allowing herself to be seen. The city lights sparkled around her, reflecting the new light she felt inside. She knew this was just the beginning, that her journey as a performer had started, and that the ordinary life she had known was now infused with extraordinary possibilities as she reached her apartment. She took a moment to look out the window at the quiet streets below. Thinking about the people she had touched with her voice, she picked up her notebook, the one she had carried for years, began to write down her feelings, her thoughts, and her dreams. Music had always been her secret world, but tonight it had become real, tangible, and shared. And she knew, deep in her heart, that there were many more songs to sing, many more moments to capture, and many more rooms to fill with the power of her voice. The performance had shown her that she could do more than she had ever imagined, that courage could turn fear into triumph, and that one small act of bravery could change the course of a life forever. As the waitress continued to sing, the ordinary hum of conversation and clinking dishes faded into a distant memory, replaced by the intensity of her voice filling the room. Each note carried emotion, each word connected deeply with the audience. People who had been chatting paused, their attention drawn completely to her. The patrons were captivated, their eyes wide, their faces showing surprise and awe. She had never imagined that a simple cafe could feel like a theater, yet here she was, commanding the room with nothing but her voice and presence. Some customers leaned forward in their seats, holding their breath as she navigated the more difficult parts of the song. Others closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them, feeling the weight and beauty of every note. There were whispers of astonishment, quiet exclamations of amazement, and the occasional gasp as she hit particularly powerful notes. It was clear that her performance was not just being heard, it was being felt. Her voice seemed to reach into the hearts of everyone in the room, stirring emotions they had not expected to encounter on an ordinary evening at a cafe. Her coworkers, who had watched her take the stage with initial nervousness, now stood in awe. They whispered among themselves, marveling at her ability to transform fear into confidence, hesitation into artistry. Some shook their heads, unable to believe that the shy, quiet waitress they had known could command attention in such a profound way. The performance was not only a revelation for the audience, but for those who had worked alongside her for years. They realized that talent can be hidden in the most unexpected places, and that courage can make the ordinary extraordinary as she sang. She lost herself in the music. She forgot about the cafe, the customers, and even the tiny stage she stood on. All that mattered was the song, the story it told, and the emotions it conveyed. Years of secret practice and dedication culminated in this moment, and she felt a surge of exhilaration and liberation. The fear that had gripped her when she first stepped on stage dissolved, replaced by a profound sense of purpose and connection. She was no longer just performing. She was sharing a piece of herself with the world. A few of the patrons, who had initially been skeptical, found themselves leaning closer, captivated by the raw power and emotion in her voice. They whispered to each other, unable to hide their surprise. Some recorded short videos on their phones, eager to capture the once-in-a-lifetime moment. The energy in the room was electric, a tangible sense of wonder and admiration spreading from one table to another. The waitress could feel it, feeding her performance, encouraging her to push further, to give everything she had. The song reached a particularly emotional passage, and the waitress poured every ounce of feeling into it. Her voice trembled slightly with intensity, but it was a deliberate vulnerability that made the performance even more moving. The audience was silent, utterly absorbed, experiencing the music as if it were a shared journey. Tears glistened in the eyes of some, smiles appeared on the faces of others, and there was an undeniable sense of unity, a connection forged through the power of song. She had achieved something remarkable. She had transformed an ordinary cafe into a space where emotions could be freely expressed and shared. The moment was heightened by the subtle reactions of those around her. The manager watched with pride, unable to conceal the astonishment and admiration in her expression. She had seen performers before, but she had never witnessed someone with such raw, unpolished talent captivate an audience so completely. Her co-workers whispered excitedly, pointing out the beauty of each note and the intensity of the emotions being conveyed. It was a shared experience, a collective acknowledgement that something extraordinary was unfolding right in front of them. As the performance progressed, the waitress began to explore the dynamics of the song, using softer, more intimate moments to draw listeners in, before unleashing powerful crescendos that left everyone breathless. The contrast between the gentle and the dramatic created a sense of journey, storytelling, that resonated deeply with the audience. They were no longer passive observers. They were participants in an emotional experience that transcended the ordinary. Every glance, every nod, every subtle expression in the room reflected the impact of her artistry. For the waitress herself, the experience was transformative. She realized that her years of quiet practice, her dedication to music, and her willingness to take risks had culminated in a moment of profound achievement. She had stepped out of the shadows and allowed herself to be seen and heard. And the response was more powerful than she could have imagined. Confidence replaced hesitation, and she felt a sense of belonging she had never known. She was not just a waitress serving tables. She was a musician, a storyteller, a person capable of touching lives through her voice. The audience, now fully engaged, responded with enthusiasm. Hands clapped, heads nodded, and soft cheers encouraged her to continue. There were moments of hushed reverence, as if everyone in the room understood the significance of what they were witnessing. Even the regulars who had seen her every day without giving much thought were now transformed. Their perception of her forever changed. She had revealed a hidden depth, a remarkable talent, and a vulnerability that resonated universally as she approached the final notes of the song. The intensity built to a climax. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting, anticipating, fully immersed in the performance. She delivered each note with precision and emotion, her voice soaring and filling every corner of the cafe. The energy was palpable, a mix of awe, admiration, and emotional release. For a brief, unforgettable moment, the ordinary world of the cafe ceased to exist, replaced by a shared experience of beauty, passion, and human connection. When the final note lingered in the air and faded, there was a moment of silence, a collective intake of breath, as if everyone needed to process what they had just experienced. Then, like a wave breaking, the applause erupted. Hands clapped, voices cheered, and people rose to their feet, some even whistling and shouting words of admiration. The waitress opened her eyes, overwhelmed by the response, tears threatening to spill from the intensity of the moment. She had done it. She had captured the hearts of everyone in the room and left an indelible impression. The manager rushed to her side, embracing her with excitement. "You were incredible. I can't believe what just happened," she exclaimed. Coworkers cheered, congratulating her, some wiping tears from their eyes, others smiling broadly in admiration. Patrons approached to express their astonishment and gratitude, some even asking if she would perform again soon. The energy in the cafe was electric, a mix of celebration, amazement, and shared joy. The performance had exceeded everyone's expectations and left a lasting impact. After the initial excitement subsided, the waitress returned to her station, still buzzing with adrenaline. She served customers with a renewed sense of purpose, for each interaction now carrying a subtle confidence born from her achievement. She had learned something profound. Courage and authenticity could captivate, inspire, and transform ordinary moments into extraordinary experiences. The night had shown her that stepping up, taking risks, and sharing one's passion could change not only her life, but also the lives of those around her. Later, as the cafe emptied and the evening quieted, she reflected on the performance. She thought about the years of practice, the moments of doubt, and the courage it had taken to step onto that stage. She realized that her life had changed in an instant, that the shy, unnoticed waitress had revealed a side of herself that was powerful, confident, and capable of remarkable impact. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment and a renewed determination to continue pursuing her dreams. Walking home under the city lights, she replayed the performance in her mind, savoring the emotions, the reactions, and the connection she had experienced with the audience. She felt gratitude for the opportunity, for the support of her coworkers and regulars, and for the chance to step into the light and share her voice. The night had been transformative, not just for the patrons who witnessed it, but for her as well. She understood that this was only the beginning, that her journey as a performer was just starting, and that the world held countless opportunities for her to explore and embrace. At home, she sat by the window, notebook and pen in hand, documenting the experience in detail. She wrote about the emotions she felt, the reactions of the audience, the sense of connection that had defined the evening. Writing allowed her to process the overwhelming intensity of the moment and to solidify the lessons she had learned. She knew that courage, dedication, and authenticity were keys to unlocking her potential, and she felt inspired to continue on this path as the night deepened. She reflected on how much she had grown in such a short time. The shy, unnoticed waitress had transformed into a confident performer, capable of captivating a room and touching hearts. She understood that her journey was far from over, that challenges and opportunities awaited, and that each performance would teach her something new. She embraced this realization with excitement, knowing that her life had taken a turn toward something extraordinary, and that the power of her voice could continue to inspire and connect with others in meaningful ways. The night after her performance was a whirlwind of emotions. She woke up with a mixture of excitement and nervous energy coursing through her veins. Memories of the applause, the surprised faces, and the warmth of the room flooded her mind. Even as she went about her morning routine, making coffee and preparing breakfast, she couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary had happened, something that had changed her life in ways she was only beginning to understand. She arrived at the cafe early, eager to see the regulars and coworkers who had witnessed her performance. As she walked in, she noticed a few people already waiting, talking in hushed, excited tones. Their eyes lit up when they saw her, and one of the regulars approached, smiling broadly. "You have no idea how much everyone is talking about you," they said. "People are still watching the videos and sharing them. You really stunned the whole room last night." Her heart swelled, with a mix of pride and humility. She had always dreamed of sharing her voice, but she hadn't imagined it would resonate so deeply with others. She thanked them quietly, feeling a sense of gratitude for their support and recognition. The small cafe, which had always been a place of routine and comfort, had become a launching point for something new, something larger than herself. Throughout the day, the atmosphere at the cafe was different. Customers lingered longer, asking questions about her singing and complimenting her talent. Some even requested that she'll perform again, eager to hear more. The whispers of excitement and admiration created an energy that was palpable, a shift from the ordinary to the extraordinary. She felt a sense of responsibility, knowing that her performance had touched people in a way she hadn't expected. Her coworkers were equally amazed. They congratulated her repeatedly, their eyes filled with admiration and pride. Some had doubted her at first, but now they saw a side of her that they had never witnessed before, a side that was confident, passionate, and capable of captivating an entire room. Their encouragement was overwhelming, and she felt a bond with them that went beyond the typical workplace camaraderie. They had witnessed her courage, and they celebrated it as if it were their own victory. As the day progressed, she received messages and calls from people who had attended the performance. Some offered words of praise, others invited her to perform at different venues, and a few even asked for lessons or collaborations. The attention was both thrilling and intimidating, but she welcomed it with an open heart. She realized that her talent was not just a personal gift, but a means to connect with others, to inspire, and to bring joy in the quiet moments between serving tables. She reflected on how far she had come. The shy, unnoticed waitress who had once practiced in secret had stepped into the light and shared her voice with the world. The experience had taught her the power of courage and the importance of taking risks. She understood now that opportunities often come unexpectedly, and the choice to embrace them could lead to life-changing moments. By evening, the cafe had returned to its usual rhythm, but the memory of her performance lingered. Customers who had witnessed it shared their excitement with new arrivals, creating a ripple effect of admiration and curiosity. The energy in the room was different now, infused with a sense of possibility and hope. She moved through her duties with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that her life was no longer confined to routine and repetition. After her shift, she walked home through the quiet streets, reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this point. She thought about the years of practice, the nights spent singing alone, and the moments of doubt that had almost held her back. Each memory was a testament to her perseverance and dedication. She understood now that every step, every sacrifice, and every moment of quiet dreaming had prepared her for this moment of triumph. At home, she sat by the window, notebook and pen in hand, and began to write. She documented the events of the past day, the emotions she had experienced, and the reactions of those around her. Writing allowed her to process the whirlwind of experiences and solidify the significance of what had happened. Her words flowed freely, capturing not just the facts, but the feelings, the excitement, and the transformation she had undergone. She also began to plan for the future. Invitations to perform at other venues had opened doors she hadn't anticipated. While she was cautious about taking on too much too quickly, she felt a sense of determination to pursue these opportunities. She understood that talent alone was not enough. She needed to continue honing her skills to stay grounded, and to approach each performance with the same sincerity and passion that it had captivated her first audience. The support of her family and friends was invaluable. They celebrated her success and offered encouragement, reminding her of the importance of staying true to herself. They had witnessed her dedication and knew how much music meant to her. Their belief in her abilities reinforced her own confidence and strengthened her resolve to pursue her dreams with intention and focus. In the following weeks, her life began to change in subtle but meaningful ways. She continued to work at the cafe, maintaining her responsibilities. But she also began performing at small local events, gradually building a following. Each performance brought new challenges and new experiences, but she approached them with the same humility and dedication that had carried her through her first stage appearance. The lessons she had learned about courage, resilience, and authenticity remained her guiding principles. She found joy in the connections she made through her music. People from different walks of life came together to listen, to share, and to celebrate the beauty of her voice. The experience reinforced the idea that talent, when shared, had the power to create community, inspire hope, and transform ordinary moments into extraordinary ones. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that her passion was not just a personal pursuit but a gift that could touch others. Through it all, she remained grounded, remembering the humble beginnings of her journey. The cafe, the early morning routines, the long hours, the quiet nights of practice had shaped her, giving her the strength and perspective to navigate her newfound opportunities. She understood that success was not just about recognition or applause, but about staying true to oneself and embracing the journey, with all its challenges and triumphs. As the months passed, she continued to grow as a performer and as a person. Each experience, each song, and each audience contributed to her evolution. She learned to balance her work at the cafe with her musical pursuits. Finding harmony between the practical and the passionate, her confidence grew not just in her abilities but in her understanding of the impact she could have on others. She embraced the responsibility that came with talent, approaching each performance with care, authenticity, and gratitude. The story of the waitress who had stunned a whole room with one performance became a source of inspiration for many. Her journey reminded people that talent can be found in unexpected places, that courage can transform fear into triumph, and that ordinary lives can hold extraordinary potential. She became a symbol of hope and possibility, proving that taking a chance, stepping up, and sharing one's gifts could lead to profound and lasting change. Reflecting on her journey, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment and purpose. She had discovered not just her own voice, but the power of vulnerability, courage, and connection. She knew that the path ahead would continue to present challenges, but she also knew that she was ready to face them. Guided by the lessons of her past and the promise of her future, the applause, the astonished faces, and the heartfelt connections had shown her that her voice mattered, that her dreams were valid, and that the ordinary moments of life could lead to extraordinary opportunities when embraced with courage and passion. And so, she continued to sing, to work, and to dream. Each day was a new opportunity to grow, to connect, and to share her gift with the world. She had stepped up once, stunned a room, and changed her life. Now she embraced the ongoing journey, knowing that every note, every performance, and every act of courage could shape not just her own destiny, but the lives of those who listened. Her story was a testament to the power of believing in oneself, taking risks, and letting the voice within be heard.